noon. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki jai, Sri Radha Giridhari ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paribrajaka Jaja Shodhara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Abai Charanara Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paribrajaka Jaja Shodhara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Shranta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Nantakoti Vaishnava Brinda ki jai. The appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya ki jai. Sri Advaita Acharya Mahotsava ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories assembled devotees. All glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Just as Krishnadas Kaviraj said that he was simply chewing the morsels left by Vrindavan Das Thakur as he compiled the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Vrindavan Das Thakur is known as the Vyasadeva of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes and compiled the great Chaitanya Bhagavat. So in the same way, I am simply relishing the water that was left from Dravida's class yesterday. Very nice. Salud. In hopes that this will give me some inspiration. No, that's good. Yeah, it's. So what I want to read first, the majority of the class is this book compiled by Satyaraj Prabhu on the Panchatattva, and he's taken nectar from many different authorized sources describing in detail Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas Thakur. So we'll be reading the chapter about Advaita Acharya, a lot of nectar to be churned. But before that, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which Srila Prabhupada translated, because my understanding is that it's the most authoritative biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the sense that not only is it the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, but in depth the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, and it's a combination of Bengali and Sanskrit. So in this way it's different than the other biographies of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which are primarily pastimes, ecstatic, wonderful pastimes, but Krishnadas Kaviraj took the time to present the Siddhanta and teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the very beginning of the Adi Lila, there are some verses about Lord Chaitanya, verses about Lord Nityananda, verses about Advaita Acharya, and also the Panchatattva. So these are the two verses he's written about Advaita Acharya. I'll read the English to those, and then we'll go right into the reading. So he's saying, I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Advaita Acharya, whose activities are all wonderful. By his mercy, even a foolish person can describe his characteristics. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In 5 verses I have described the principle of Lord Nityananda, then the following 2 verses I describe the glories of Sri Advaita Acharya. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. 5. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. So Advaita means non-different. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore I take shelter of him. Sri Advaita Acharya is indeed directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. His glory is beyond the conception of ordinary living beings. Are there any ordinary living beings in this room? Yeah. Mahavishnu performs all the functions for the creation of the universes. Sri Advaita Acharya is his direct incarnation. So, it goes on to discuss his being non-different from Mahavishnu. So, because he's actually a combination incarnation, and we'll be reading about that. So, if you allow me. I haven't started yet, and you're leaving? Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna. Sri Advaita Acharya. So, I offer my obeisances unto the merciful Sri Advaita Chandra, whose heart is inundated by the ocean of prema. He delivers infinite numbers of devotees and is honored and worshipped by Sri Chaitanya Dev. The life of Advaita Acharya has been the subject of several texts such as Lodhya Krishnadas' Balya Leela Sutram and Isha Nagara's Advaita Prakash. Isha Nagara was a direct disciple of Advaita Acharya. There are also brief references to his life in Mahaprabhu's biographies and in later works of the Vaishnava Acharyas. Tradition holds that Labha Devi, or alternatively Nabha Devi, Advaita Acharya's mother, once had a dream in which Lord Sadashiva, the original form of Shiva, foresaw the wicked age of Kali, the age that destroys all godly qualities in men. As her dream progressed, she saw Sadashiva become filled with compassion. In this state, he decided to go to the shore of the causal ocean, where Mahavishnu lies in mystic slumber, and beseech the Lord for his mercy. Realizing that Vishnu responds to the sacrifices of his devotees, he decided to perform severe austerities for 700 years on behalf of humanity. Seeing Sadashiva in his mood of compassion for the suffering masses, Lord Mahavishnu appeared to him and spoke, "My dear Sadashiva, why are you trying to please me with difficult austerities? You and I are one." It says in the, I think I shouldn't say that. It's in the Brahma Samhita that Sadashiva is the personified glance of Mahavishnu. Sadashiva replied, "My dear Lord, unless you empower me to save mankind in the age of Kali, how can I do it?" Hearing this question, Mahavishnu embraced Sadashiva, and by their shared compassion, they took one form. This manifestation would appear on earth as Sri Advaita Acharya. Because sometimes you hear the reference that he is an incarnation of Lord Shiva, and sometimes an incarnation of Mahavishnu. So by that embraced, one form appeared. As Labha Devi's dream continued, she saw Yamaraj, the Lord of Hell, approach the Lord and say, "My dear Lord, if you descend in the age of Kali as Advaita Acharya to deliver everyone, then there'll be no more work for me. I will be unemployed. There will no longer be sinners for me to punish in hell." The Lord consoled Yamaraj, saying, "My dear Yamaraj, do not worry. All those wicked people who purposely try to avoid the nectarian wave of divine love that will inundate the people of Kali Yuga, the impersonalists, the fruitive workers, false logicians, offenders, and atheists, they will still be available for you to take to hell. Don't worry, there's plenty around." With this assurance from the Lord, Yamaraj was satisfied and returned to his abode. Like that. After this dream, Advaita's mother planned her next day with great appreciation for the Lord and his mysterious ways. Let us backtrack for a moment. Kuvera Pandit, Advaita Prabhu's father, was a learned Brahmana and an expert in the performance of Vedic sacrifices and a scholar of the Veda. He was born in 1410 AD and lived in the Srihat district, what is today known as Bangladesh, in a village called Lauda. He was the son of Nrsimharaj, who came from Shantipur. In his previous birth, Advaita's father was the celestial treasurer, Kuvera, the head of the Guyakas, or the ghostly followers of Lord Shiva. Since he was one of Shiva's loyal disciples, he was blessed by being allowed to descend on earth as Shiva's very own father, the father of Sri Advaita Acharya. Before Advaita's birth, Kuvera Pandit and Labha Devi had been blessed with 6 sons: Lakshmi Kanta, Sri Kanta, Hariharananda, Sadashiva, Kushala, and Kirti Chandra. They also had a daughter, an incarnation of the Ganges, but she passed away at a young age. Of the 6 boys, 4 took sannyas. Not bad. 4 out of 6. Okay. Leaving home to travel to holy places. The 2 remaining sons, elder brothers of Sri Advaita Acharya, became householders, and their descendants are still living in the present-day Bangladesh. Kuvera Pandit was despondent because his 4 sons had left home, and as a result, he took leave of absence from his enviable job as courtly advisor to King Divya Simha, the emperor of Srihata. Kuvera went with his wife to Shantipur in West Bengal, and they spent their time performing austerities on the bank of the Ganges. So what's the advice here? If you're feeling despondent, go perform some austerities, right? chant some extra rounds and fast. And while in Shantipur, Kuvera Pandit performed Monavrata, a vow of silence, and it was at this time too that his wife had the dream mentioned above about Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. When she told her husband about the dream, he became elated, thinking that the Supreme Lord himself would descend into his wife's womb. Soon after this incident, his wife became pregnant, and soon after that, they returned to Lauda. From this moment on, Advaita Prabhu manifested in their minds without cessation, and a divine effulgence radiated from both of their hearts. Okay. Learning of Labha Devi's pregnancy, the people of Sri Hata eagerly anticipated the appearance of a divine child, and sometime in January or February of 1434, the Lord, known as Sri Advaita Acharya, appeared. According to others, he was born as late as 1466, but it is a well-known tradition that Sri Advaita was 52 years old when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born. Okay. At the auspicious, and Haridas Thakur was 35 years older. I remember hearing that recently. At the auspicious time of his birth, the people of Sri Hat were bathing in the Ganges, and the holy name of Hari resounded everywhere. Does that sound familiar? Okay. Local astrologers and pundits predicted that the divine baby would deliver the entire world. That's not a bad horoscope. During the Anaprasha ceremony, in which young babies are fed their first grains and are given a name, the family priest, who was a descendant of Shandilya Muni, many of the Bengalis, that's their gotra. When did he live? Like thousands of years ago, or do you know? Okay, yeah, that's Shandilya Gotra. Gave him the name Kamalaksha, lotus-eyed. He was also given the name Advaita according to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was given this name because he is non-different from the Lord. It is said that baby Advaita engaged in many naughty childhood activities, just as Nimai and Nitai would do many years later. He refused to drink from his mother's breast unless she loudly chanted Hare Krishna. That's interesting. Okay. He also enjoyed bewildering people with his divine powers. One night, Mother Labha Devi had a divine vision in which her child took her to a high mountain in the Sri Hat area on the day called Varuna Snan. This is an auspicious day in March-April period, the 13th day of the bright moon. Labha Devi had long desired to bathe in the holy rivers of India, and so on this auspicious day, Kamalaksha took her to this mountain to fulfill her blessed desire. As they stood on the mountain, all of India's holy rivers appeared before Kamalaksha, who was effulgent in his divine form of Mahavishnu, in personified form, and offered prayers to him. With the reverberation of conch shells, the rivers ascended the mountain and began to shower Mother Labha with their divine waters. Tell that to your friends. You know, my son, he's like that. As Kamalaksha's mother enjoyed feeling the holy rivers engulf her body, he said, "Look, mother, there is the red Saraswati water, the white Ganga, the black Jamuna, as well as the Kaveri, Narmada, and Godavari. This incident is remembered today in Sri Hata as the day called Varuni Snan. Kamalaksha's childhood was replete with activities in the mood of Shiva, who is also known as Rudra, the god of anger. In Hari Charana's Dasa's Advaita Mangala, it is said that Kamalaksha was once playing with the son of King Divya Singha in a cave. The prince began to mock devotees who chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, right? Kamalaksha became so angry that the prince, who was otherwise quite brave, actually fainted out of shock. He got really angry with him. When Kamalaksha was 5 to 10 years old, he quickly grew in learning and became quite the child prodigy. Even as a young boy, he always used his learning to show the supremacy of Vishnu or Krishna. On one occasion, King Divya Singha, who was a devotee of goddess Durga, sent his son with Kamalaksha to visit a Durga temple. Kamalaksha entered the temple in a challenging mood, saying, "Show me your goddess." And when he came before the deity, he refused to bow down. The king's son became offended. Kamalaksha in turn became so angry that the boy again fell unconscious before Advaita's intensity. But because Kamalaksha was performing the leela of a little child, he became so frightened that he ran off to hide. Just then, some local village boys went out to look for him, and after some time managed to find him and bring him back to the temple where the king was waiting with Kuvera Pandit, his father, yikes, and other leading citizens. Imagine the scene. My son is completely passed out right in front of the deities, and it's your fault, your son's fault. And the king was naturally upset when he saw his son lying there as if dead, but Kamalaksha quickly remedied the situation by sprinkling Charnamrita water that had washed Lord Vishnu's feet over the prince's head. At that point, the prince came back to external consciousness, and all who were present were taken by Kamalaksha's mystic potency and his faith in Lord Vishnu. On another similar occasion, the two boys again went to a Durga temple. This time on the auspicious day of Diwali, when candles are offered to the goddess Durga by all believing Hindus. Kamalaksha again refused to bow down to Durga, and the prince again became disturbed, calling for Kamalaksha's father. When Kuvera Pandit arrived, he had a discussion with his son on the subject of demigod worship, reminding him that even Lord Ram had worshipped the goddess Durga to get his kidnapped wife Sita back. To this, Kamalaksha politely said, Dear father, please excuse me, but I would like to illustrate the point that you are slightly misled on this subject." Very respectful. "Just as a tree is nourished by all its branches and leaves and twigs only when the roots are watered, secondary gods are satisfied only when the primeval Lord Vishnu or Krishna is worshipped." He continued, "As the Chakora bird can only live on moonlight, I can only worship Lord Vishnu or Krishna." Just then, the Durga image on the temple altar burst into pieces. And the goddess came out of it, illuminating the 10 directions. A mystical voice then filled the room, proclaiming, "The husband will never bow down before the wife." In this way, Durga indicated that the boy Kamalaksha was none other than Durga's husband, Lord Shiva. Exciting times. After the goddess spoke in this way, the king understood that he had committed an offense and that Kamalaksha was Lord Shiva himself. Feeling ashamed, the king offered appropriate prayers to the Lord, and then Kamalaksha warned the king that his son was mocking the Vaishnavas and that the king himself was a demigod worshipper, which was a sign of ignorance. When you say talk to power, speak to, there's that saying? Truth to power. Something like that. A little boy, he's only 5 to 10 years old, talking to the king. Durga is merely Krishna's maidservant, Kamalaksha told the king. She is merely his external energy, whose job is to bewilder everyone with materialistic illusion, and so by worshipping her, your kingdom can never flourish. The king acknowledged that this was true and continued to praise Kamalaksha with chosen prayers. Kamalaksha, satisfied with the king's prayers, placed his feet on the king's head and requested him to chant the holy names of Krishna. The king became a Vaishnava and established a large Krishna temple in his kingdom. He also arranged for elaborate festivals on Vaishnava holidays, and ultimately he took initiation from Kamalaksha, who gave him the name Krishna Das Brahmachari. After the king's conversion, Kamalaksha, still a young boy, went with his parents to Shantipur, the place from which his father's family came. He lived by the side of the Ganges and in school told all his classmates that the holy names of Krishna are the source of all knowledge. As the years passed, he studied the 6 Vedic philosophical systems and the Veda itself, mastering these and all related subjects. At this time, although still not quite a teenager, Kamalaksha received the Veda Panchanana, an advanced degree in Vedic scholarship that was usually awarded to people more than twice his age. His teacher, Shantacharya, lived in the village of Purnavati, and according to Vedic custom, Kamalaksha spent his student days in his teacher's hermitage. It is sometimes said that it was Shantacharya who gave Kamalaksha the name Advaita during the name-giving initiation ceremony, but most authorities accept that he was given the name at birth along with the name Kamalaksha. Shantacharya was aware of Kamalaksha's divinity and wanted to reveal it to his boys' classmates. He was non-envious, unlike Ramanujacharya's teacher, who were envious of him showing him favor. He's their teacher's favorite pet, and so on. One day, Shantacharya was walking in the forest with his students when they came to a lake filled with beautiful lotus flowers and fearsome snakes. Shantacharya pointed to a platform in the middle of the lake with a huge, extraordinarily beautiful lotus flower on it. He asked his students if any of them could cross the water to get the big lotus and bring it back to him without getting hurt. Most students were intimidated by the request, but Kamalaksha stepped forward and volunteered. He cautiously entered the water, and at every step a lotus flower mystically appeared to carry him. And at the same time, a big snake rose out of the water, spreading its hood to shade him, like the celestial snake Ananta shades Lord Vishnu. In this way, Kamalaksha safely reached the platform and picked the lotus to give to his teacher. His fellow students were amazed, and each vowed to always respect Advaita from that day on. Showing off as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's ecstatic. When Advaita Prabhu reached his teens, his parents, both in their late 80s or early 90s, departed for Sri Vaikuntha, leaving behind the material world. Advaita, as part of his Leela, mourned the death of his parents and soon after went on pilgrimage. He first went to Orissa, where in great ecstasy he saw the Gopinath deity. He then went to Nabhigaya, Puri, Godavari, Shiva Kanchi, Vishnu Kanchi, where he was amused to see the competition between the Shaivites and the Vaishnavas. Always arguing. Why was he amused? Because he's Lord Shiva and Mahavishnu combined. So, let's see, the Kaveri, Madurai, Setubandha, Dhanutirtha, Rameshwar, Udupi, where he first met Sripad Madhavendra Puri, who was to become his preceptor. Madhavendra Puri immediately felt great love for Advaita, whom he saw as the embodiment of the perfect devotee, and together they discussed the urgent need for an incarnation to descend to earth in the current age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Advaita then predicted the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, telling Madhavendra Puri the confidential Leela of the Lord. According to Madhavendra Puri, after meeting Madhavendra Puri in Udupi and disclosing to him the Lord's mission, Advaita carried on with his pilgrimage, visiting Dandakaranya, Nashika, Dwarka, Prabhasa Tirtha, Pushkar, Kurukshetra, Haridwar, Barikashram, Gomukhi, Gandaki, and then, to his great delight, he arrived in Mithila, where he saw Sita Devi is the wife of Lord Ram's birthplace. This made him shed tears of love. It was in Mithila that he is said to have met Vidyapati, the great devotional poet, and then he proceeded to Ayodhya, the eternal abode of Lord Ram. Traveling to Varanasi, he bathed in the famous Manikanika Ghat and saw the deity of Vishwanath, Lord Shiva, the most famous deity of Varanasi. After this, he visited the temple of Adikeshava and also saw the deity Bindu Madhava. Then he traveled to Prayag, where he saw the Vaini Madhava deity. At this point, he shaved his head and bathed in the Triveni, the meeting place of the Saraswati, Ganga, and Yamuna rivers. He next went to Mathura, where he visited, among other places, the house of Kubja. Is that still available to go to? Maybe when you're in your Vrindavan parikrams, you ever hear of devotees visiting the house of Kubja? He offered his deepest respects to the Janmastan of Krishna and took bath in the Vishram Ghat. He then performed the whole parikrama of Braja, meditating on Krishna's Leela at every site. Finally, he arrived in Vrindavan. While there, he resided for some time at the foot of Dvadasaditya Tila, the hill where Sanatana Goswami later built his famous Madan Mohan temple. The place where Advaita Prabhu lived is called Advaita Vat, is still preserved and can be visited even today. Now this is a story about the Madan Mohan deity that Sanatana Goswami was given. Advaita Acharya's relation with the Madan Mohan deity is quite confidential. One day, when Advaita was sleeping under a banyan tree, the deity appeared to him in a dream and said, I was being worshipped here, but the priest, because he was afraid of Muslim invaders, left me and fled to protect his own life. I was hidden at Dvadasaditya Tila under the present flow of the Jamuna. So it's actually in the water. Please unearth me and install me in my proper place. After waking up from the dream, Advaita Prabhu found the site, dug up the deity, and installed him with the help of some local Brajbasis. They performed the customary bathing ceremony. At that time, Advaita Prabhu rubbed Madan Mohan's body so thoroughly that the Lord regained his original smooth, blackish complexion. Some days later, when Advaita Prabhu was traveling, a group of Muslims came and attacked Advaita Vata. The deity hid himself. The deity hid himself under a heap of old sanctified flowers that were previously offered to the Lord and thus was not destroyed. When Advaita Prabhu returned, Madan Mohan again told him in a dream where he, Madan Mohan, had hid himself among all these flowers. He requested Advaita Prabhu to dig him up and give him to Purushottam Chobe to serve. This Purushottam Chobe was a Brahmana from Mathura who later gave Madan Mohan to Srila Sanatana Goswami to serve. The Lord told Advaita Prabhu that he, Advaita, should return to Shantipur in Bengal and install 2 deities, Yugalamurtis. There, one of Sri Radha and one of Madan Gopal. He said that these deities should be carved according to a picture that was painted by Radharani's dear friend Vishaka. Madan Mohan further informed Advaita that the picture was hidden in Seva Kunj and revealed its exact location. It was during this period that Madhavendra Puri came to Vrindavan and met Advaita Prabhu for a second time. Puripad went into fits of ecstasy when Advaita told him of Madan Mohan's order, and concurring with the deity, he explained to Advaita the inappropriateness of worshipping Krishna without Radha, since Krishna can never be happy without her love. She is the pleasure-giving potency, the Hlandini Shakti, and Krishna feels incomplete without her presence. Madhavendra Puri advised Advaita to get married in order to properly worship the deities. He suggested that a renunciate has a tendency to give up his deities at the time of death, but a householder always has his wife, children, and other relatives or descendants to take care of the service of the deity if he falls ill or dies. Nevertheless, Madhavendra Puri assured Advaita Prabhu that he would take upon himself the reactions to any offenses made to the deity by the next 14 generations of Advaita's family, the Advaita Vamsa. This was one reason why Advaita Prabhu got married and created the Advaita family lineage. Another reason, as seen in Nityananda Prabhu's example as well, was to spread the Yuga Dharma among householders as opposed to just select groups of recluses and transcendentalists. Madhavendra Puri went with Advaita to Shantipur and stayed with him for 1 month. While there, he instructed Advaita in the science of chanting, telling him that the power of the holy name was the only way to attain deliverance in the present age of Kali. It was at this time in Shantipur that Madhavendra Puri gave initiation to Advaita Prabhu. Soon after the initiation ceremony, Madhavendra Puri left Shantipur to continue his mission in other parts of India. Advaita Prabhu quickly became the most respected Vaishnav in Shantipur. Once, after defeating a champion scholar in debate, a voice in the sky uttered the following words: "This Brahmana is not an ordinary man, he is God himself, because nobody is more learned than him. His name is Advaita." Does that ever happen in any of your debates? A voice in the sky, he does debating. Advaita Prabhu met Haridas Thakur, the Muslim-born devotee who was fully devoted to chanting the holy names of Hari, and they became great friends. Advaita Prabhu built a dwelling for Haridas in a cave and personally trained him in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. The respect that these 2 pure devotees felt for each other cannot be described. Together they organized Sankirtan in Navadvip before Mahaprabhu came to work with them. Advaita Prabhu tried to encourage young Nimai Pandit to join their Sankirtan team, but Nimai was merely interested in scholarship prior to his Sankirtan pastimes. It took some time in his relationship with Ishwara Puri before Mahaprabhu relented and outwardly showed his appreciation of the Vaishnavas. Before his marriage, Advaita Prabhu initiated Mahaprabhu's most intimate associates such as Vasudev Dutt, Bhagavad Acharya, Shamdas, Yadunandan Acharya, the guru of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, as well as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's parents. The story may be recounted as follows. When baby Nimai refused his mother's breast milk, all of the town's physicians were brought in. The boy would not eat, and everyone feared that he might get sick. When nothing relieved the boy's condition, Jagannath Mishra and his mother Sachi called for Advaita Acharya, for it was known that he had spiritual knowledge and could possibly help little Nimai. Advaita Prabhu's analysis of the situation. Nimai, setting the example of a perfect devotee, will only eat prasadam, food offered to Krishna with love and devotion. Mother Sachi was uninitiated, and therefore her breast milk was not considered prasadam. Okay. Therefore, Nimai would not take her breast milk, but would instead only cry until the situation was corrected. The resolution to the dilemma, said Advaita, was to quickly initiate Mother Sachi and her husband Jagannath into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Then he said Nimai would drink her milk. Sure enough, when the initiation was complete, little Nimai drank sumptuously, and all of Navadvip felt great relief. There you go. Hey, why'd you get initiated? Let me tell you the story. This ecstatic. When Advaita Prabhu turned 50, he decided to take Madhavendra Puri's advice to get married. Nrsimha Baduri, the father of the bride-to-be, was a learned and renounced Brahmana of the Narayanapur district of Saptagram. His daughter Sita was the goddess of fortune, and according to tradition, she was an incarnation of Yoga Maya, the mystic potency of the Lord. She appeared in this world in the month of September, 4 days before Radhastami, the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. She first saw Advaita Prabhu while crossing the Ganges on a boat with her father and her young sister Sri Devi. Nrsimha Baduri and his daughters were impressed by the beautiful golden form of Advaita Prabhu as he was performing his worship on the bank of the Ganga. Sita Devi especially appreciated Advaita's beauty. Some days later, Nrsimha Baduri took his daughters to Shantipur to perform worship of the goddess Bhagavati. Sita Devi's eyes met Advaita's and they admired each other once again. Shamdas then suggested the idea of a wedding to Nrsimha Baduri. Your daughter is actually Yoga Maya and Advaita is God himself. How could anyone ever conceive of a better match? The bride was given away at Pulila Gata on the bank of the Ganges. Later, Nrsimha Baduri gave his younger daughter, Sri Devi, in marriage to Advaita as well. Advaita Prabhu initiated his 2 young wives just like Purnamasi Yogamaya gave initiation to the 2 young Dutis, girl messengers of Radha and Krishna, Vira and Vrinda. He then gave them instruction in Vaishnav Siddhanta, and gradually he told them about them and gave them entrance into the highest form of meditation, the state of being Radharani's maidservants. As he grew in years and wisdom, he instructed his disciples more and more in the intricacies of Bhakti Yoga. Advaita Prabhu could not tolerate the complete absence of spirituality of people in his time. To alleviate the burden of the masses, he tried various forms of worship to propitiate the Supreme. He offered flowers to the Ganga, and by divine providence, these flowers floated downstream and touched the body of Mother Sachi, who was bathing there. As a result of this, her son Vishwarup, Mahaprabhu's elder brother, an incarnation of Sankarshan, was born. The scriptures say that the Lord, who is very kind to his devotees, offers himself to whomever offers him even a mere tulsi leaf or a handful of Ganges water. Knowing this, Advaita Prabhu sat down on the bank of the Ganges, and his whole body shivering and perspiring in ecstasy, called for the Lord to descend with offerings of Ganges water and tulsi leaves. It was thus, through Advaita's mercy, that the Lord appeared. Now, is this the Hankar? He's calling because he was calling so loudly. Hankar is the name of Advaita, one who chants very, very loudly. When Mahaprabhu displayed his pastimes in Navadvipa, Advaita Prabhu was already settled in Shantipur. Still, Advaita would come regularly to see the Lord. The Chaitanya Bhagavad informs us that when Mahaprabhu showed his divine opulence in Mahapakash for the first time in the house of Srivas Thakur, Ramai Pandit came to Shantipur and told Advaita Prabhu about it. Advaita immediately came to Navadvip with his worship paraphernalia to perform his first celebration of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the house of Nandanacharya. At that time, Advaita Prabhu worshipped the Lord with this verse, Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagaritaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namaha. My repeated obeisance to Krishna, who is Govinda, the Lord of the Brahmins, the friend of the cows, and the benefactor of the universe. Because he never saw any difference between Mahaprabhu and Krishna, he never used any new or separate mantra for the worship of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Advaita Prabhu was the first to boldly proclaim that Mahaprabhu was none other than the Supreme Lord himself, and it was Advaita too who was given the vision of Mahaprabhu as a universal form. Advaita Prabhu's first son, Achyutananda, was born in 1493. That's 1 year after what? Yeah. Just to see if anyone's awake. No, just thinking of who's awake. No, it's true. It gives you a time frame. Okay. 1493, 7 years after Mahaprabhu was born. Okay? And Balaram, Gopal, Krishnadas, and the two twins Jagadish and Swarup were born at intervals of 4 years, all from the womb of his first wife, Sita Devi. Ultimately, Advaita Prabhu rejected 3 of his sons for deviating from the path of Mahaprabhu and accepted 3, Achyutananda, Gopal, and Krishnadas. Balaram and Krishnadas were the only 2 sons to enter household life. The other 4 became sannyasis. All the children took initiation from their mother, Sita Devi. Prema Vilas says that Sri Devi, the younger sister, had a baby as well, a boy named Chota Shamdas, but the child is said to have died immediately after birth. Achyutananda was considered Advaita's greatest son. Some say he took initiation from Gadadhar Pandit and lived in Puri as Gadadhar's servant. Tradition holds that Achyutananda embodied pure devotion in the spirit of his father. Advaita Prabhu was always eager to receive the dust of Nimai's feet, to serve him as a humble devotee, but Nimai always treated Advaita as his worshipful superior. Therefore, Advaita devised a plan, or rather a trick, to obtain Mahaprabhu's mercy. Advaita began to preach impersonalist, Mayavad or Shankarite philosophy in Shantipur, and because of this, Nityananda Mahaprabhu became furious, traveling from Navadvip just to chastise him. The 2 divine brothers first consulted with Gauridas Pandit, who reported that when he had asked Advaita Prabhu if we were all to be considered one with God, Advaita Prabhu replied, yes. And then he showed Gauridas his forearm form, and later also 6th-arm form. Mahaprabhu was actually amused when he heard this, but he pretended to be in an angry mood of Lord Nrsingadev. Rushing to where Advaita Prabhu was staying, he found Advaita preaching his foolish impersonalism. He asked Advaita the following question 3 times. Jnanavad va bhaktivada? Which is better, devotion to a personal God or impersonalistic monism that is tainted by knowledge? And 3 times Advaita replied, Gyan, Gyan, Gyan. Then in a fit of rage, Mahaprabhu kicked him on the back with his lotus foot and started play fighting with him. It was only by Sita Devi's persistent begging that Mahaprabhu desisted. She was unaware that the entire scenario was orchestrated by Advaita Acharya, for he felt in this way that he could easily receive the Lord's attention and mercy. When Mahaprabhu took sannyas, Mother Sachi accused Advaita Acharya, her guru, of initially convincing her first son, Vishwarup, to leave her and take sannyas, and now he was taking away her youngest child in the same way. For this offense to her guru, Nimai asked her to touch Advaita Prabhu's lotus feet, and then out of true grateful spirit, Nimai gave her the gift of divine love. One day, the 3 lords, Nitai, Nimai, and Advaita, desired to dramatically perform Krishna's toll-collecting sport, or Dana Lila. Advaita played Krishna, Mahaprabhu played Radha, and Nityananda played the gopis' older governess who accompanied them. Srivas Thakur and the other devotees played the gopis, and Kamalakanta, Gauridas Pandit, and others played the cowherd boys. They dressed themselves in appropriate costumes and hired a boat on the bank of the Ganges, decorating the boat as well as the ghat with sandalwood paste, vermilion, and flower garlands. The boys dug up various sticks, flutes, and bugle horns so they could really simulate the paraphernalia that Krishna and his associates would actually have. So this is just going through that because of the time. Yeah, okay, let me just see it. It is said that Advaita Prabhu remained manifest on earth for a full 25 years after the disappearance of Mahaprabhu, an event that had Advaita and his family in a tearful state for months. Feeling separation from Nimai and Nitai, constantly remembering them and chanting their names, he called together his favorite sons, Achyutananda, Gopal, and Krishnadas, and he sent them for Vira Chandra Prabhu and Gauridas Pandit from Ambika Kalna, as well as his leading disciples, Yadunandana Acharya, Shamdas, and Kamadev. They performed kirtan in a state of divine rapture, and Advaita suddenly made his way into the deity room of Radha Madan Gopal, never again to return. This event constitutes the disappearance of Advaita Prabhu in 1559 in Shantipur. Advaita Prabhu was manifest on earth for 125 years, just like Sri Krishna, but his Leela is divided into 5 phases. As in Krishna's Leela, Advaita manifests first all the three phases: Kumara, childhood; Poganda, boyhood; and Kishore, youth. But Advaita Prabhu also displayed a fourth and fifth stage known as Yovana, adulthood, and Vardakaya, or transcendental old age. According to recognized acharyas, Advaita in his idealized form in the eternal Navadvip, that's up there, looks like an ever-fresh youth, despite his old age. Reference to a youthful and unbearded Advaita can also be found in Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary on Chaitanya Bhagavat. However, Vaishnavacharyas have concluded that because Advaita was a senior Vaishnava of the time, some 50 years older than Mahaprabhu, he can properly be depicted with long white hair and a beard in his manifest earthly pastimes. It should be said in conclusion, this is the conclusion, it should be said in conclusion that Advaita Prabhu was clearly the efficient cause of both Mahaprabhu's appearance and disappearance. So his appearance, calling him, and here's his disappearance. While his fervent prayers brought Mahaprabhu to this planet, a point we have already touched upon, it was his cryptic poem saying that rice is no longer needed in the marketplace because everyone has become mad like Mahaprabhu himself, that led to Mahaprabhu's disappearance. This sonnet has a concealed meaning that bewildered the mass of devotees. Only Subdamodar, Mahaprabhu, and perhaps Jagadananda Pandit, who brought the poem to Mahaprabhu from Advaita Acharya, were able to fully understand it. Basically, the rice referred to Mahaprabhu himself, and since love of God had spread sufficiently, the rice was no longer needed. Advaita was in essence saying that Mahaprabhu had fulfilled his mission, had accomplished what he had intended to achieve. Since people were now intoxicated with love of God, Mahaprabhu no longer needed to stay on the planet to supply rice in the marketplace. In this way, Advaita Prabhu plays what in some ways may be considered the most important role in Mahaprabhu's pastimes. He unveils the Lord's Leela for the conditioned souls of the phenomenal world, and then, after accomplishing Mahaprabhu's mission of love, he winds it up and sends him back to the spiritual world. Sri Advaita Acharya ki jaya. Now, is there the microphone, other pastimes or things to be said for any of the devotees, or do we just end here?
I had a question.
Please.
We have a mic. Actually, I had two, but let's see if somebody else has a question. It was just, it said in that reading that I'm trying to remember exactly how it said it, but it said something to the effect that there being no other way of self-realization, the chanting of the holy name was the best at this time. The point is that it seemed to imply that there are other ways at other times. So, is chanting the holy name in japa and kirtan the best way always? No, I've heard one answer, I'm not going to say which one. Is that the best way always? Or is it there's other options, but for this reason we don't live long enough, we can't practice the yoga, this and that. Therefore, a Kali Yuga default method is chanting the holy name. But it's not always the best. Or there's others that are equal to, other methods that are equal to.
Well, a few words.
Comment on that?
Yeah, a few words, because this question's been brought up. You have what's known as Yuga Dharmas, the different Yuga Dharmas. In different ages, certain methods are most recommended. And those methods are matched to the people of that age in their level of consciousness and abilities and so on. That's one point. And in the age of Kali, the idea of yoga meditation for thousands of years, or jagyas, or opulent temple worship, we can't pull it off. So the chanting is for us. But it's also been said, it is said, that it's always there, and it's always perfect and complete. But people in the different ages may not appreciate it. It's simplicity. But it's never, well, it's not that good in Satya Yuga or something like that. It's only good in Kali Yuga. No, it's always there. But the psychophysical makeup of the residents or persons of the different ages are matched with the Yuga Dharma. So it is the easiest but the most sublime. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Somehow or other, it's the easiest of all of them, and it's the most sublime. It's more sublime than the other Yuga Dharmas. It always has been. That's my understanding. What's your understanding, Dravida Prabhu?
Yeah, that's pretty well. I always think of Valmiki, who was chanting. He was in the Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
And of course he was coming from kind of a low social position.
Oh boy.
But it worked for him. And he wrote the Ramayana. And you got the Kali Santana Upanishad, which was written before Kali Yuga. You can search throughout the whole of Vedas, you won't find a better way of transcendence than this. So it works always. But as you said, no.
Iti Shodoshakam Namam Kalikamasa Nashanam.
The first verse coming is the Hare Krishna mantra itself. Iti Shodoshakam Namam Kalikalmashanashanam. That these 16 words are better than any other means for counteracting the evils of Kali. So I mean, really, it doesn't really, so because so it could be just in the age of Kali, but the practice was there in previous ages by the evidence of Valmiki. But just that it's in the Upanishads, which are very ancient.
That's a nice line. There's also the example of Dhruva Maharaj. When the Vishnu Dutas appeared on that airplane, he became tongue-tied before Lord Vishnu, and eventually he just chanted Hare Krishna. Prabhupada in the purport says that's good method, anytime, anywhere.
What was the beginning that he was on the flower plant?
Dhruva Maharaj.
Yeah, but going back to Godhead?
Well, when Lord Vishnu appeared, he just started chanting. He was tongue-tied. He just started offering prayers to the Lord. Another question, or anyone else? Otherwise, we can. Yes, Prabhu. One thing I like to say about one thing I like to say, because I just caught this in the most recent Back to Godhead magazine. You can say it over and over again, but Satyaraj Prabhu, he really does his research. As far as what he's going to write and so on. Just like this most recent Back to Godhead is an article on Mirabai. And, he talks about some things that are said, but are they really authorized? And things that Prabhupada said. And, he's not going to, whatever he's put into these books, he's been very, very careful to make sure that it's coming from authorized sources. So he's good for that. Very, very good for that.
I had a question about this incident with Mother Sachi and Advaita Acharya, how it seemed like she disagreed with her spiritual master. I was just wondering, to what degree can you not be on the same kind of agreement with your spiritual master?
Well, on what level? Well, definitely it is described by Srila Prabhupada in the story of the Kumaras, that if your spiritual master tells you can get married, you can say no. Right? The Lord Brahma told him to get married, and they said no, and he got all upset with them, So you could disagree with that. Disagreeing in the sense that respectfully you may not understand something and ask for clarification, then it's not an aparad, right? But if you are disagreeing and it's based on envy or pride, we got some problems. Because spiritual master, a disciple means you accept the spiritual master and, he's your guru, he's your teacher. He's the one you look to for good instruction and to lead you back home, back to God. So you start disagreeing with everything he says. Well, that's not good. That's not good. You may not understand something and say, have a different idea and ask for clarification. Like that. Ask for clarification. Is that helpful?
I think that was a very good answer. Can we say, and I'm willing still she so much loved her two sons that maternal, which we can't even measure the depth of Mother Sachi's love for her two sons, what to speak of little Nimai, overruled the usual etiquette, and it sweetens the ras, the relationship.
Yes, in that particular situation, for sure. Yeah, we have to be very careful when we hear about very, very advanced souls in their dealings with each other, as guru and disciple, or in situations like this. We don't compare it to ourselves. I'd be very, very careful to understand these pastimes on a different level. And there's other things to be factored in besides maybe being puffed up or something. You have a question?
Yeah, in regards to the first question of Maharaj. Understanding is that in every Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma is chanting the holy name. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
So this is very special Kali Yuga because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descends. So what's the significance then? Can you elaborate on this?
Well, you just said it. It's very, very significant because the Yuga avatar of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually directly Krishna himself. That only happens once in a day of Brahma. So we're getting a lot of exceptional amount of mercy. It's Krishna himself coming as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let's not blow it. How many Kali Yugas have we been? How many Kali Yugas have we blown it? How many times we've gone around and around and around? So this is it. That's the take home. Don't blow it this time. Take advantage of the mercy. It's Krishna himself coming as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So
I guess if the process is the same if he comes and it doesn't come, so you can still attain.
Can I give you an example? And correct me if anyone else of my saintly Prabhus. There's nuance in these understandings. And the Kurma avatar is Krishna. But he has different pastimes, different activity. If you have the Kurma avatar, or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's the supreme, he's Krishna in his fullness, personally appearing. Which is it better to take shelter of? You're going to have more mercy flowing. It's like electricity is electricity, but you've got a 110 socket and you've got a 220 socket. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, amplifying that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mellow. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that full man. He's Radha and Krishna combined, and he's standing right there. So it's it's a subtle nuance, and we get the darshan of the Supreme Lord. Take it, don't quibble, don't say, I don't know, you actually full Swayam Bhagavan, or are you a partial part? I don't think that's the way to go. But there is a difference. Is that right, or you want to nuance that, Dharma or Dravida?
absolutely right. I mean, you thinking about the next Kali Yuga maybe coming back, or?
No.
You're waiting around for the next bus?
Not at all. I'm just trying to understand philosophically. But in other words, it's so much easier for us to take advantage of
It's
this
the full
exact
mercy.
time.
It's the full mercy.
Yeah, the full
Directly
mercy.
Krishna, Radha and Krishna. It's the full mercy.
And I was thinking in two ways. That he's flowing to us with special mercy, and we are in a condition that we need that special mercy. So he's perfect for us, and is the most powerful, offering the most options. Take it.
And we have Advaita Acharya to thank for pulling him out of the spiritual world. Sri Advaita Acharya ki jai. Sweet, we should end here. Okay. I hope everyone enjoys their fasting this morning, extra chanting and dancing and whatever it is you do, like that. So
Now, those who are within proximity, some will be out on books, I assume, please gather for the 12 o'clock arati. We'll have a nice arati and then break the fast. No Pushpanjali.